I've been a cop for almost 17 years now. You learn quickly that most of the job is routine. Noise complaints, fender benders, the occasional drunk getting mouthy. But every once in a while, something lands on your desk that you just can't forget. Something that doesn't fit the report, that doesn't have a box to tick. This was one of those. It came in just after 2:00 a.m. A domestic disturbance call, nothing out of the ordinary. Dispatch said the woman sounded panicked, maybe crying. Address: 1185 Kensington Avenue, Unit 4B. Middle of the block, small brick apartment building, low income but decent. No prior incidents at the address. We were tired, end of a long shift, but it sounded urgent enough, so my partner and I rolled out. It was raining hard that night. Everything felt off. Too quiet, even for that hour. When we pulled up, the porch light above Unit 4B was flickering like it couldn't decide whether to die or stay alive. We made our way up the narrow staircase, and that's when I noticed something strange. The hallway was cold. Not just the ACs on too high kind of cold, bone-deep, breath-fogging cold. In the middle of July, we knocked. No answer. Knocked again. Still nothing. I was about to signal to dispatch when we heard it. A whisper, barely audible, coming from inside the apartment. Oh, my partner looked at me. I gave the nod. We radioed it in and breached. Inside was dark, save for a dim light coming from the kitchen. The place was wrong, not messy. Just eerily still, like the kind of stillness that belongs in funeral homes, not apartments. There was no sign of a struggle, no overturned furniture, no signs of anyone. Then we found her. She was sitting at the kitchen table, mid-30s, long dark hair, wearing what looked like a faded nightgown. Her hands were folded in her lap, pale still. Her eyes were open, locked on the far wall. "Ma'am," I asked gently, "are you okay?" No response. She didn't move, didn't blink. My partner took a step closer. "Ma'am, can you hear us?" That's when we noticed it. Her lips were moving just slightly, whispering something. I leaned in closer. Cold air surrounded her like a bubble. I caught only a few words. "He's in the wall." Then she stopped. Her eyes rolled back slowly and she went limp. Paramedics arrived and checked her out. No sign of drugs, no trauma, just catatonic. She was transported for psychiatric evaluation. But here's the thing. We stayed behind to check the rest of the apartment, and we found it. In the bedroom closet, the back panel had been removed. Behind it, a small crawl space, barely big enough for a grown man to fit. Inside were fast food wrappers, cigarette butts, a small mattress, and something worse. A camera. Not like a professional setup. Just a cheap little webcam. Taped to the wall, pointing directly into the bedroom through a hole the size of a quarter. The feed was running live. We traced the signal. It was being streamed, not saved, not recorded. Just broadcast to a remote IP address we were never able to trace. The woman in Unit 4B had been living alone for nearly 6 months. She didn't own a computer. She didn't have internet. There was no sign of forced entry. The crawl space wasn't on the building plans. According to the landlord, it shouldn't have existed. 2 days later, she vanished. Just disappeared from the hospital. Left all her belongings. No one saw her leave. No cameras picked her up. All that's left is the footage. A few seconds of her staring into nothing, whispering, "He's in the wall." I don't tell this story much. Not because I don't believe it happened. I do. I lived it. But because even after all these years, I can't explain it. And I guarantee like thinking about what else might be hiding inside the walls of places we think are safe. I've worn this badge for nearly 15 years, seen things that'll stay with me till the day I die. Some I've been able to talk about, others, well, some things stay buried because no one would believe them anyway. This one falls into the second category. But lately I've been dreaming about him again, about that night. It was late October. A cold snap had rolled in, leaving frost on the grass and a bite in the air. I was doing a routine patrol out near County Road 72, an isolated stretch. More deer than cars. Around 2:17 a.m., dispatch radioed in. A driver had called in after nearly hitting what they thought was a child, wandering near the drainage ditch just off the road. The caller didn't stop. They were too shaken, but gave a general location. We get calls like that sometimes. Teenagers pulling pranks, animals mistaken for people. Still, I drove out to check. My headlights swept the roadside. Nothing at first, just empty fields, fog starting to settle in low waves. But as I neared the curve where the ditch ran deepest, I saw him, standing still. He looked to be around 7 or 8, pale skin, no coat, despite the cold. Just a thin white shirt and pants, both stained dark and damp. His hair was messy, plastered to his forehead like he'd been crying or sweating. He didn't react to the cruiser pulling up, just stared at the trees across the ditch, unblinking. I rolled down the window. "Hey there, buddy. You okay?" No answer. I got out slowly, leaving the headlights on him. I radioed in my position and requested backup, just in case. As I approached, I felt it. The air was colder here, unnaturally so. My breath fogged heavily, and the hairs on my neck prickled. Instinct kicked in, a deep kind of warning that tells you something is wrong, even if you can't explain why. I kneeled a few feet from the boy. "Where are your parents? Are you hurt?" He finally looked at me and, I swear to God, his eyes weren't right, not glowing. It's not red, just empty, like staring into a well. He didn't blink, tilted his head slightly. Then he said something I still can't explain. "They don't like the light." I blinked. Who doesn't? He pointed at the woods, not with his hand, but just turned his head again. Then, with sudden movement, he stepped backward, right into the ditch. "Hey!" I called, lunging forward. But when I looked down, he wasn't there. I scrambled down the incline, shining my flashlight into the muddy water. Nothing. No splash. No ripples. "Gone!" I called for backup again, voice shaking this time. I combed the area for nearly 20 minutes before another officer arrived. Together we searched until sunrise. Not a trace. Here's the part that chills me the most. When we finally ran a check for missing kids in the area, we found something. A boy matching his description had disappeared on that very stretch of road, 13 years ago. Drowned in that same ditch after his parents' car crashed during a storm. His body was never recovered. I even found the original report. The photo, same pale face, same dark haunted eyes. They ruled it an accident. But now I wonder. Because a week later I drove past that spot again, just to glance out the window, and I saw him, standing in the exact same place, waiting. Every officer has a case that haunts them. This is mine. I used to work nights in a mid-sized town where not much ever happened, at least not on paper. Most calls were bar fights, noise complaints, sometimes a domestic we'd have to break up. But there was this one house, 132 Large Street. Locals called it the Hollow. I never understood why until that one night. The house was officially abandoned. Had been for over a decade. Foreclosure, no living heirs. Weeds choked the driveway, windows boarded up, roof sagging. The kind of place kids dare each other to enter and old folks whisper about. The first time I was sent there was around 3:40 a.m. A neighbor had reported lights flickering inside and what sounded like a woman crying. I was skeptical. Kids probably broke in again. I drove over solo, expecting to find teens or squatters. When I pulled up, the house looked the same as always dead, but as I got out of the car, I heard it, faint but there, crying, soft broken sobs coming from inside. I approached the porch, which creaked under my weight. Flashlight beam swept across rotting wood and peeling paint. I radioed in that I was investigating a possible break-in, and I pushed the front door. It opened dizzily, too easily. Inside, the air was thick, heavy with the smell of mildew, mold, and something else like rusted metal and rotting flowers. My light scanned across the interior, dusty furniture covered in sheets, wallpaper curling at the edges, photos on the wall blurred by moisture, and then the crying stopped. Completely. No echo. No fade. Just silence. "Hello," I called out. "This is the police. If someone's in here and needs help, say something." Nothing. I moved deeper into the house. My boots left prints in the dust. The air grew colder as I walked down the hall. That's when I noticed something strange. None of my footsteps echoed. It was like the sound died immediately after it left me. I reached what looked like a living room. That's when I saw it. A mirror. Huge. standing floor to ceiling against the wall. Not broken, not aged, pristine, too pristine for a house like this. But here's the thing, my reflection wasn't right. I was standing still, flashlight held steady. But in the mirror, my reflection was breathing heavier. It blinked when I hadn't. Its head tilted just a little too far, almost curious. And then it smiled. I didn't. I froze. My blood ran cold. I stared at it. My reflection, something stepped forward, closing the gap between us. But I hadn't moved. I backed away slowly, not turning my back to it. That's when I heard a thud upstairs. Heavy, like something had fallen or jumped. I bolted back toward the front door, but it wasn't there. I swear to you, it wasn't the same hallway I came in through. The wallpaper was different. The floor dipped downward, like I was descending. That's when the whispering started. Not one voice. Dozens. Men, women, maybe children. All speaking at once in different tones. None loud enough to make out, but all coming from behind the walls. Then the crying returned closer this time. I turned, and there she was. A woman, pale. Long black hair matted with what looked like dirt or blood. Her mouth opened far too wide, eyes sunken, almost bruised. She didn't walk toward me, she floated. I ran. I don't remember how I got out. Truly, 1 second she was in front of me, the next I was outside on the lawn, gasping for air under the streetlight. Dispatch said I'd been inside for only 7 minutes, but my watch said 2:11 a.m., and I'd arrived at 3:40. I never went back inside the hollow, and I made sure no one else from the department did either. But that mirror, sometimes I see it. In dreams. In shadows. And once, in a shop window, just for a second, my reflection smiling when I wasn't. I've answered a lot of distress calls in my career. Some fake, some tragic, some you don't ever forget. But one still wakes me up in a cold sweat. It's not because of what I saw, but because of what I heard. And because officially, it never happened. It was just past 1 a.m. when the radio crackled. Unit 22, respond to possible domestic at 103 East Linton Drive. Female caller, screaming heard in the background. A line went dead. I was already patrolling nearby, so I confirmed and headed over. East Linton isn't a bad area. Older houses, quiet, mostly retirees. I remembered the address. A woman named Claire used to live there, widowed. I hadn't seen her in a while. As I approached, I noticed the house was completely dark. No porch light, no streetlights nearby. It was dead silent. I stepped out and immediately felt off. The air was heavy, like the kind of humidity that comes before a storm, except there was no storm in the forecast, not even wind, just a silence that felt. To complete, I knocked. No answer. Then I tried the door. Unlocked. I stepped inside, calling out, "Police! Hello? Anyone here?" From inside, the house looked abandoned. Dust on the counters, furniture covered in plastic. No sign of recent activity. But then I heard it. From upstairs, a woman sobbing. I radioed in, confirming I'm inside 103 East Linton. Possible subject heard upstairs. Dispatch responded. Copy that. No other units available right now. Typical. I climbed the staircase slowly, flashlight in one hand, other on my weapon. The sobbing got louder with each step. Guttural. Like grief that had nowhere else to go. I reached the second floor and immediately knew something was wrong. All the doors were shut, except the one at the end of the hallway. That one stood slightly open, flickering with light like a candle. "Ma'am," I called. "I'm with the police. I'm here to help." The crying stopped. Just like that. I stepped forward, hand trembling now. I nudged the door open slowly. The room inside was empty. No woman, no candle. Just a dusty bedroom with old floral wallpaper peeling at the corners. I swept my light across the floor, under the bed, toward the closet. Nothing. And then the door behind me slammed shut. Hard. I turned instantly, yanking the handle, but it wouldn't budge. I slammed my shoulder into it once. Twice nothing. And then I heard it again. The crying. Not from the room. From the radio on my shoulder. It was her. Sobbing. Deep. Primal. broken. But the volume was already all the way down. The radio began to hiss, like static turned wet. Then a voice came through, not sobbing now, just whispering, clear as day. Get out. I didn't hesitate. I kicked that door with everything I had. It flew open like it was never locked at all. I bolted down the stairs, out of the house, into the street. As I looked back at the house, every single light in the place flickered on for 1 second, then out, black again. I called dispatch to update the man. Here's where it gets stranger. They had no record of a call from that address. I asked them to replay the radio transmission that sent me there. Nothing, no logs, no audio, like it never happened. But I was there. I saw the room, heard the woman, smelled the air like burnt flowers and static. The next day I looked up the property history again. Claire had died in that house, exactly 1 year ago. It's from a fall down the stairs. Neighbors said she was trying to call for help when it happened. Her body was found at the bottom with the phone clutched in her hand. There's a rule on the force we Dan T talk about in front of rookies. Never ignore the weird calls, the ones that Dan T make sense. They might be false alarms, sure, but sometimes, there's something else. I was a few years into the job, working rural patrol in the dead of winter. It was around 2:30 a.m. when we got the call. A man had walked into the local gas station wearing nothing but a thin hospital gown. No shoes, no ID, no wallet. Said he'd escaped from somewhere. He was bleeding from the feet and clearly in shock. The clerk called it in, and by the time I arrived, the guy was sitting on the curb wrapped in a blanket the manager had given him. Looked hollow, wide sunken eyes. Skin the color of wax. He was mumbling, but his voice was hoarse, like he hadn't used it in days. I knelt down and asked his name. He said Tom Brenner. I radioed in for a medical unit and ran his name through the system. That's when it got weird. Dispatch went silent for a few beats, then came back. 10:23 on that. Are you sure? He said Tom Brenner. Yeah, I replied. Middle-aged white male, about 5'9", brown hair, looks like he's in rough shape. Another pause. Copy that. We have a Tom Brenner in the system, ... but he's deceased. Passed away 2 weeks ago at Clearbrook Hospital. Cardiac arrest. I thought maybe it was a mistake. Names get recycled, databases glitch, it happens. But then I looked at the guy again. He had a hospital bracelet on his wrist. I moved the blanket and read the label. Clearbrook Medical Center, Thomas Brenner, DOD, February 4th. That was today's date, and I stared at it for a long time. My hands started to shake. I asked him, Tom, do you know what happened to you? He looked up at me, dead serious, voice suddenly steady. They buried me. Said it just like that. No emotion, no fear, just fact. I asked him where. He said in the old lot, near the chapel, behind the hospital. But I wasn't dead yet. That last part chilled me. I told dispatch to send backup immediately and requested a unit to check the hospital grounds. They found a fresh grave, not in the official cemetery, but out back, where the land had once belonged to the hospital's original wing, now condemned. It was shallow, it's barely covered. Inside, a coffin, unsealed. And the only thing in it? A hospital gown. Bloodied footprints leading away. We brought Tom in for evaluation. He was calm the whole time, like a man who'd made peace with something no one else could see. The doctors couldn't explain it. No records of discharge. No autopsy paperwork. His name was listed on a death certificate, signed by a now-retired physician, who had worked at Clearbrook in over a year. When we questioned him, the doc said it was a clerical error. He was dead. I pronounced him myself. Tom vanished that night. Security cameras caught him walking out of the ER waiting room, and nothing. No trail, no sightings, just ... gone. But that's not the part that haunts me. A few weeks later, I received a manila envelope. No return address. Inside was a photo. Old, grainy, black and white. It showed a group of patients standing in front of Clearbrook's original chapel back in the 1950s. Judging by the uniforms, and there in the second row was Tom Brenner. Younger, but unmistakably him. Same hollow eyes. Same bone structure. I flipped the photo over. Scrawled in faint handwriting were the words, "He always comes back." We had the photo analyzed. It was authentic. The type of paper, the chemical breakdown of the ink dated to the mid-20th century. No one could explain it. And now, every year on February 4th, that same gas station reports something strange. A man in a hospital gown standing outside barefoot. Eyes searching the road, waiting. I don't respond to those calls anymore, but I still check the logs, and every year, someone marks it unfounded. Just like they did the first time. Thank you all for joining me on these journeys. Your support means everything. And I love reading your reactions and personal experiences in the comments. If these stories kept you on the edge of your seat or gave you chills, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more haunting stories have you ever experienced. Something similar? Or perhaps you have your own unexplainable story to share. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below each of your stories adds another layer to our growing community of horror enthusiasts. And if you think someone else might enjoy a good scare, do and forget to share this video with them. Stay tuned for more spine-chilling stories, and remember, sometimes the scariest tales are the ones that could happen to any of us. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video if you dare.